We're live. This is real. It's happening. We are on the internet. This is real. What's up, everyone? My name is Sam Sheffer. I work at Mashable, and today we have a very, very special guest sitting in on this digital screen here, all the way from Canada, Joel Zimmerman, aka deadmau5, who isn't here to hang out, but he's here to talk to us today about the Absolut deadmau5 VR app experience. I won't spoil anything. Joel, let's get into it. First of all, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
On this wonderful Thursday. So, for those of you that don't know, deadmau5, Joel, I'm going to call him Joel because his name is Joel. Joel partnered with Absolut to make a deadmau5 VR app experience, and there's an available cardboard headset, exclusive, obviously, sort of tricked out with all this deadmau5 gear on it. There's actually Meowingtons here on the side, which is very cool.
We had to trim a few polys for that one.
It's a nice touch. So, Joel, talk about how this thing sort of came to be, and what your expectations, why you wanted to do this. Like, you're obsessed with VR? You've obviously been making music and you've been a tech nerd for a really long time, but VR is like the new space to play in. So, talk about how it got started.
Yeah. Well. Okay, Absolut approaches with this kind of just the notion of doing some kind of co-brand thing, and I've always treated co-brands like, we'll see. It just depends on what it is. And then they came back and said, hey, we want to do a VR experience, and then immediately in my head I just went, oh shit, that's going to be like a lot of work, a lot of man hours, and all this stuff because because at first I was thinking like, oh great, they're going to show up with a whole bunch of spherical GoPros strapped to something and then do like some 360 video where you put head tracking in Unity for like, $20 and then ship it and call it, it's virtual reality. But then when they started saying, no, we want to get, V2 involved in all the studios and get some, modeled content and stuff. And I go, oh, wow, you're doing this in a game engine. This is perfect because, and kind of parallel to this, I've been exploring the ideas of, building things in virtual reality or just, in a game engine in general, just to start getting my feet wet. So I figured this was like the perfect opportunity to start trying things out, in VR and stuff and hooking up with those kind of development companies to get that sort of thing done. So this is a really great first step for us to just get our feet, just dip our toes in the VR pool and try it out and have some fun along the way. This is such a short experience in terms of like how long I'd love one to be. And,
right.
It was just the turnaround was really quick, so we could get something out to see it, test it, and see how people react to something like that.
So talk about the experience, because I've got to try it. I thought it was excellent. It really, like you said, it's like a cheap VR thing, whatever you film and you're done. But this was very immersive, and it very much plays into your whole aesthetic. So talk about the experience for the people that are watching this, and then what sort of creative input you had.
Well, we combined a couple of techniques to getting this done, and one was having a crew come out with some spherical cameras to the studio and set that up, and then just kind of film me walking around, and then immediately that went off in my head. Oh, great, here we go with we're just doing 360 video, guys, right. and with some head tracking, and then after that it dips into a game engine more or less, and. It's just simple interactivity. We don't want to make a challenging game. We just want to make a VR experience, right? So VR experiences obviously, are better with some very, very minor bits of interactivity like movement or, looking around and solving very simple puzzles. And then you get in a car and then it's a different type of, it's all very proof of concept. Mm-hmm. And I think the whole experience is about, 5 to 10 minutes maybe max.
Yeah.
And it's just something good you can just dip on, try it, and then pass it over to your buddy and have him try it, kind of thing. And I think it's really great entry for people who have never, and I to this day still know lots of personal friends that have never tried VR at all, So, going from no VR ever experience to flipping that on, it's a good welcome to VR.
Right. Right, because like you can sort of play, like you were saying, you can play a little bit of a game where you're like you are dodging some gear, or you're driving the car, or you have to like follow. You can like kind of like point and click in a sense. So it encapsulates a bunch of little tidbits of what you would get from like an Oculus or a Vive, but this is just like an $18 headset, and you just jack your smartphone in, and you're good to go.
Exactly. Like we didn't want to have, say, the crate scene, smoke your character and then have a menu screen come over, you dead, try again. You know what I mean? That would just be frustrating as hell. So we had to make it so that no matter what, you could play through. So.
And the elements that went into this, like the garage and the show, was that your creative side, or was it collaborative, or how'd that work?
It was a little collaborative between the two of us, and of course, I provided them, photos and some model data. I modeled the head that's on my head and gave that to them. So we worked to a degree with the developers as my time permitted, because I got a whole bunch of other projects going on too. So it was like, I don't want to I can't do the rigging, but we can go to a mocap studio and film some stuff. So we went and did that, and that was a pretty fun experience.
So talk about that a little bit more. Like you had the receivers or sensors on your body, and then you were physically like active, right?
Yeah, and that system that they use is insane. Like it's VFX grade stuff. Obviously, everything gets quantized down to less data points for virtual reality, and then more so for mobile and stuff like that. But what happened was we captured real motion of me just dodging crates and stuff like that, and they would use those animations and then plug them into the game engine to have me do that. But they capture that shit at like 200 frames a second with about 32 cameras, IR cameras, all doing the reflecty ball stuff that everyone seems to be familiar with now. So that was at Fast Motion in Toronto. So I plan on using them again for other endeavors.
So this, just for the people that are just joining, because the way this sort of live stream works, people are clicking in and joining. So my name is Sam Sheffer. We are here inside the Mashable studio, inside New York City, our New York City office. We have Joel Zimmerman here live from Canada, aka deadmau5. And there is a Absolut deadmau5 VR app that is going to be available to download on July 27th. You can pre-order this cardboard headset right now. It is a special edition Google Cardboard that works with just about any smartphone. And if you're familiar with Google Cardboard, then you know how this works. You just sort of put your smartphone in here, and there's actually a button that interacts. So part of the experience of playing this, call it what do you call it, Joel? Is it an experience? Is it an app? Is it a game?
It's a VR experience.
It's a VR
by
experience.
Definition.
So part of the VR experience is there's like a game. I don't want to spoil it, but there's like there's real interactivity in it, and it's always fun watching Joel move and dodge ever so nimbly like that.
And you can take solace in the fact that it's actually me and not just
right. That's actually
character
it, right?
rigging cheap animation.
Right.
So we motion capped all the walking, jumping, and weird stuff.
And what about Meowingtons?
Meowingtons, unfortunately, is a terrible actor, so we just kind of finagled a cat model to get it to work. But
and then at the end there's a show. So they brought that same rig that was in the studio with you to that show to produce that.
Yeah, it's just a cool little feature at the end. Nothing I've never seen before or anything, but it's really cool. So we did that at Union in Toronto, where we set up the 360 camera while I performed. So
what kind of 360 camera is it?
It was a really weird thing. I wish I remember the company. It was a company out of Montreal.
Oh, so it wasn't like the GoPro rig?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, it was.
But it was his own. He had built it. So he had about, I think, 6 GoPros.
1, 2, 3,
all filming at the same time, and then he obviously takes it into, a stitcher and stitches it all up, and then they spit it out to like some geo in Unity, and then you can look around with it. And then sorry about my video. It's all.
And then once the sort of final product, once the thing was done, what was that sort of? Was there any back and forth for approval? Like obviously you wanted the final say. I think it was about 4 to 5 months development. Wow.
And after I provided as many assets as I could, like some model data, uh, point data for motion cap, and some artwork direction and stuff like that. Everything kind of went dark for like about 3 months, and I thought, well, maybe they just said whatever, And then they gave me pretty much the final product that you see there.
Wow.
With just some minor technical changes, not anything huge. It's not like we had whole scenes that we removed or anything. They delivered the final product, and I was like, okay. So that was maybe 1,200 man hours over 4 people. Wow. I'm like, that's amazing. Like for what it is, So, yeah, they pretty much sent me a polished thing, and I experienced it, and they said, is this good? And I was like, guys, this is great,
wow.
For what it is. So, but the big thing here is, like I said, it's an entry point for people for VR, but it's also a good entry point for me for getting into VR, because now I've got the gear, the Oculus, the Vive here, and I've got some crazy GPUs. And I'm starting to see a lot of really great but really short content for the higher end devices and stuff like that. And I think that's where I'm going to start putting my focus onto next.
Now, when you say content, do you mean produced videos, or are these immersive experiences that you need controllers?
Content, yeah, content is in like demos by like one of the greatest demos still. I don't know why is the Vive's The Lab from Steam VR.
What is that? Talk about it.
Well, it's a demo,
right?
It's you enter this laboratory, and then in front of you have like about 4 or 5 different proof of concepts experiences. One where you got a bow and arrow and you're shooting these little dudes in the head, and then the other one you're launching spheres, and it's all very Portal themed if you're a fan of the franchise, and it's a really great proof of concept, but it's not a completed title. And the reason for that is because there's so limited devices out there, and so many limitations on the average GPU kind of thing, that it's not really worth sinking $100 million into a AAA feature length release for VR, because there's not a big market for it yet, but there will. I think as the popularity of these devices, and then the people who are starting to become more interested in VR, who accessed it for the first time on these little Google Cardboard things and stuff like that, it's gonna open up the curiosity to the general public about immersing themselves like into higher tech.
Right, because I think a lot of people have heard of VR, but never really experienced VR the way you experience it with something like a cardboard headset, and then if you really even get more immersed with like an Oculus or a Vive. And a $600 entry point is kind of high. The only people that have Vive or Oculus right now are enthusiasts and people that know about this stuff. But for something like this, $20, $20 for something like this, and then an app from the App Store, and then you're like, wow, this is like actually something that now I understand. Because it's really impossible to fundamentally understand what VR is unless you experience it, right?
Yeah, that's true. Well, unless you had a Game Boy back in '95, remember that?
What? Oh, well, that. I mean, does that even count? The
Way
red.
ahead
It was
of
like
their
red
time.
and black. Like, yeah. If that. Did you have one of those? I never had one of those.
For a minute.
And it was like the biggest piece of crap ever.
It was, but it offered the same. It's the same technology, stereoscopic, rendering of a game engine.
It had 2 eye cups. It was like actual.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
Look it up. Virtual Boy.
Yeah,
before your
Virtual
time,
Boy.
Sam.
It was before my time. That's true. So we're gonna take some questions eventually from the stream. Can we play some music? Was it cool to play some music right now?
No,
from this,
no.
No music?
Okay.
I think you froze. You still there? Are we cool? All right, so we're good on time. This should be hooked up here. So again, for those that are just tuning in, because I know the way the stream works, my name is Sam Sheffer. Here in the Mashable studios in our New York City office, we have Joel Zimmerman's head right here, coming in live from Canada. We've been talking about his new app, the Absolut deadmau5 VR app. It's going to be available in the App Store on July 27th, but right now you can pre-order this. The site, absolutdeadmau5.com. This thing is $18. It is fully tricked out, deadmau5 style. I'll just unfold it here so you can see. And if you don't know what a VR headset, just look up Google Cardboard. If you don't know what it is, look it up. Put your phone in here, you download the app, and you put this on your face, and preferably wear headphones, and you're immersed in experience. And I don't want to give too much away.
And it's actually surprisingly better than I thought it would be in terms of getting VR off an iPhone or a Samsung and stuff like that, because I was so skeptical, dude.
Yeah. It's stupidly simple. I mean, I think we've gotten to a point where phones, accelerometers, and gyroscopes are good enough. The resolution's good enough, and then you kind of just pop it in, and the head tracking works really, really well. Like I said, I've tried the experience before. I was genuinely impressed with it. And then if you're watching this, the app will be available, like I said, July 27th, and this special cardboard's available to pre-order right now. So let me just get over here.
I got a kid in the back, like folding them together right now.
Ready to ship them. All right, so in the VR experience is a brand new, exclusive, never before heard by human ears deadmau5 track. It's called Saved. We have about 40 seconds of that clip right now that I'm going to play from this super heavy Braven boombox. And this is Saved by Mr. deadmau5. Let's see.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So you've heard that before, right?
Yeah, a couple times.
Is that a song that we may or may not hear on a up-and-coming album of sorts? Can you give any hints?
Or you may not.
You may or may not. Okay, that is a good answer. So, Joel, you've been all over the place in terms of playing music in other countries, right? You just
Yeah, we don't just stick to Canada shows.
Yeah. Are you going to continue touring, new album? I mean, you're super...
Honestly, like, full disclosure here, it's just kind of, I'm in the process of building a whole new show concept and in terms of, the staging and mechanics and the way it works and stuff like that. I'm reincarnating an older version of my stage and then just, throwing copious amounts of technology at it to make it that plus better. And so, like, while that kind of happens, I'm finishing up a lot of shows like that are kind of interim filler guys until the start of spring. Now, and this has always been a big problem of mine with management and labels and stuff, but even if the album was finished right now, which it very well may be, or may not be, we couldn't really do anything. Like, I can't just say, okay, I'm done, and hit a button on the internet, and it's out. They all have to, program release schedules and all that stuff. Let the record label do record label things. So that'll likely hit around spring.
Okay.
And then I'm going to launch that... a big North American tour, and I mean North American because it's super expensive to move 3 to 4 trucks worth of crazy new shit into other countries. But we will eventually do that. It's just we usually do the bus tour / thing. So for now, it's like festival gigs, a couple club dates here and there, and just do what I can, scrape by, and then after, dude, when the budgets come in, trust me, it's scraping by, and then from. I believe after New Year to spring is basically let's build this thing in a warehouse, perfect the shit out of it, and then put it on the road.
So
spring.
So you will keep busy, right? Like, I mean, that's you're just sort of nonstop, just going.
Oh yeah. There's no time off. I haven't had time off in 6 years,
except for when you're doing these cubing models that you're posting to Instagram every 20 minutes.
yeah. Dipping into the dark world of Houdini now, and
so
I'm posting all my and narrating my 3D fuck ups.
For those of you that follow Joel, you'll know exactly what we're talking about here. So new music, new stuff coming in the future. I'm excited. You heard it here. So I've got a laptop here. We've got some questions from the Facebook audience. This one comes from Nathan Roos. I don't mean to pronounce your last name wrong. Do you plan on incorporating
It's Roos.
Do you plan on incorporating 360 audio or sound into the visual experience?
Into this one in particular, we didn't. Just because you'd have to jack your headphone in and stuff like that, and you know what I mean for that. And you know what, I haven't even heard of that for the thing. But in the future, yes, probably. There's a lot of new technology coming out. One in particular by NVIDIA, which ray traces audio, which is actually a really cool concept. So what it does is, if you're familiar with how ray tracing works, the quick and dirty version is basically from the point source, it emits straight lines to surfaces and then reflects them back. That's how ray trace rendering works visually. But now they're starting to do it with audio. So that you could bounce audio off surfaces, but using the GPU to do that. So the calculations are like super quicker now. So if you're turning
like
your
echolocation,
head, it's not, yes, it's not turning your head and removing a sound. It's turning your head and hearing it being reflected off the surrounding environment, which is how audio works. You know, so that's something worth exploring for sure, and not something I'm going to forget about when it comes to developing future titles.
Cool. We have another question from Manuel Camacho. Is VR really a tech that we will all be using frequently? Do you think VR will take off in a real way? I mean, there's definitely a difference between cardboard and something like Oculus or Vive. Yeah,
well, and even so, disregarding price point on your ticket price into VR.
Yeah.
It's kind of up in the air. Like I said, virtual reality has been around since the 90s.
Yep.
Really. Of course, in the 90s, you had headsets like about that big. You looked like Lawnmower Man. You were all rigged out, and it just barely worked. And obviously, the concept and the technology has been around, but it just never really caught on until it was a little more and more and more accessible. Now, I'd hate it to see it go the way of the hoverboard thing. Where it just kind of shows up and then goes away,
crashes and burns.
Yeah, or explodes on the sidewalk.
Yep.
But I don't think it will now because of the way that it's portable for this and that. But I wouldn't throw all my eggs into VR development at the same time. But it is definitely a lot more now worth getting into than not.
Right, and there's also something to be said about a young, 20 or 21, Palmer Luckey starting Oculus, Kickstarter, and then Facebook scooping them for a hell of a lot of money, and then PlayStation's doing it, HTC's doing it, all these smaller companies are doing it, and then the barrier to entry is so low for cardboard. So it reminds me of what happened with 3D televisions. Like 3D movies still exist, but I feel like the 3D fad kind of like just went and died. But I think it really feels like VR is trying so hard to be a thing.
VR technology is not the problem moving forward in the future. It's here, it works, it's great. It's content and people willing to take those risks and develop AAA content. That's the bottleneck right now.
So, but Joel, is it games or is it movies? Is it interactive?
Well, that's the thing. Filming a movie, a traditional movie, has a very, very standardized pipeline in terms of production, comp, and post, and then done. Put it on the screens. There really is no pipeline for VR like that's a standardized system for these guys to make these things. Now, there are some pipelines that are, super quick and easy for any developer to dive into, like Unreal and Unity. Mm-hmm. So that's what we've been seeing lately is a lot of UE demos and a lot of Unity demos. And everyone's just been killing it with these proof of concepts. But, companies that deliver games like Call of Duty, Doom, and all that stuff are doing that on the fact that they could roll copies off the shelf because everybody's got the computer to run it, kind of thing, and the 2D screens and the GPUs to do it, which, funnily enough, is the same amount of power that you'd need to run it in stereoscopic. But again, the biggest bottleneck with VR, I think, right now is content. So, and guys willing to make that kind of leap and commit those investments into creating that content for very little recompensation.
Right, because all of these, like you said, AAA companies are taking a backseat, letting all the indie developers get their feet wet, sort of just make proof of concept things, ship them to the Steam store.
It's the human developer shield, and then seeing if it pays off, and then going in big once it kicks off. So, you just got to have your 10, 20 guys who are willing to take that kind of risk.
And then, so what do you think? In the next 5-10 years, we'll see some, Call of Duty level games, or is it? I mean, it's impossible to tell, right? But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think someone's gonna, nut up, and like a Bethesda or ID Software is gonna nut up and do a true VR release. But I think the first ones will just have that as an option, as opposed to doing it exclusively for VR. And I've considered this also. I mean, developing, say, a demo quality VR experience, but of course string it out to 30 minutes long, say, and do a virtual concert, if you will. Now, there's a number of ways you could do that, but doing it for VR and then keeping it exclusively VR, there you go. You just limited,
right,
the amount of user things. So you build it in a game engine. A game engine's a game engine, whether it's VR or just 2D on your monitor and stuff like that. You can't really lose on that because you can also offer that same experience as a playable game on a 2D screen. It's not, you don't have to develop for VR. You could just develop how you develop a game and then port VR. That's how it works. Mm-hmm. Nobody makes something exclusively VR. Anything that runs in VR can run in 2D. It's just you're removing one camera and flattening it out on the screen.
Yeah, that's right. That's
all it is.
Yeah, it is pretty
Not a lot of people understand that.
Yeah, that's true.
Now you do. So the idea that I'm kind of been solo working on in the background during this Absolut experience, which has been a great way to get it off the shelf, so to speak, and into the public eye. I've been tinkering around in Unreal and building stage design in Unreal, and then throwing on my headset, and then, wow, this is great, this is amazing. Now, if only it moved, and only it looked like a AAA game and all that stuff. And that's the stage we're at now, is finding companies and developers and artists to work with that would be willing to work for not $200 million. To produce that kind of quality for a short thing. And then the catch is, and then we also release this as like a client so that you can also just click it on your desktop, run it, and then it's a video game too, so you're not really missing out because you didn't spend $800 on a headset and another $1,000 on a GPU good enough to run it.
Right.
So there's a lot of give and take in that department, and I think the future for me is taking a platform like that and delivering a client to the end user. So you're installing it like an app,
yep.
And it's a client. So from the client, I can take the server, which is the development, and inject new music, inject new animation, inject updates as DLC, additional scenes, new music demos and stuff like that. So in effect, I could replace my whole social world in VR, as in like, oh, why'd you take your SoundCloud down? Well, now I can take that thing that I worked on in the studio, inject it into the thing, have a couple of in-house artists finagle some of the movement and stage or possibly design entirely new levels to accommodate that.
So it's almost like it's almost like your own Second Life world where all of the elements are modular, and then you pick and choose what you want out there and when.
And that's the hardest part is having to build a system that isn't linear. It has to be very modular in the fact that we can do these kind of changes and stuff like that, because if you do a linear thing, you're just releasing a demo and that's it,
Right.
and then hands off. And another bonus feature for creating a platform like this is rigging it in such a way that I could also go to a mocap studio and broadcast point data from these glowy balls all over me to the server, which rebroadcasts to the client, so everyone running the client can also watch a performance while I'm actually performing it.
So
with
a live VR experience.
Yes. And there's a show that's done in VR right now, actually, that kind of sparked it. I can't remember what it's called, but it's available on Steam. And this guy basically runs a talk show, and he broadcasts the point data live. And I thought, wow, that's great. I mean, the technology and the way he's delivering this is actually pretty cool. If only someone would figure out a way to do it for performing artists, And I'm sure a lot of other artists have had this idea, but they keep running into the same barriers we all are that are kind of having these ideas. And one is budget,
right?
That's a big one, And then the second one is assembling the team to do this that can work within that budget and deliver this kind of product. But I just keep getting more and more ambitious with it, and companies are like, no, we're selling enough copies of Doom, we're good, so.
We're very much in this transitional phase where you're like,
exactly.
I want to do this, and people are like, we kind of do also, and then you'll sort of just eventually get there, right? Like you keep stumbling and keep building on this.
It'll happen. Right. But thanks to companies like Absolut, we're able to put out these proof of concepts because, I mean, no word of a lie, Absolut makes money. on stuff. So they're okay with assigning a chunk of change to develop a VR experience to someone who's willing to do it. And it's an investment for humanity in VR.
Progressing
it really
humanity toward a VR friendly world, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So they're not afraid to lose money on something that may or may not work. And I'm just really glad that we were able to partner up with the right people to do this in a very good way, because this also backfires really wrong when the wrong company does it with more money than we put in it and hires the wrong studio and the wrong stuff and then unleashes it as a thing, like especially if the technology is very new when it becomes accessible, because then people see this like, what the fuck, this is bullshit, this is garbage. And then when someone does it right, everyone's like, yeah, I've tried it, and then it's like, it's whatever.
Yeah, but I think that this, for a cardboard experience, for real, Joel, this was what I was genuinely impressed with. This is one of the most impressive.
Well, coming from you guys at Mashable, that means a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Because I know you guys are sticklers.
Yeah. I mean, I put this on. I tried it out it was like a week or two ago, and I was like, wow, this is like actually awesome. Like, I know Joel, this is like all of his aesthetics, and then the music, and then the experience. Like, you put on cardboard, you look around, you're in space, whatever, it's cool. But like the team at Absolut, that like the creative team, like they genuinely know what they're doing, and then
they got it. They got the right development on that. And like I said, you can throw all the best ideas and literally an unlimited budget at anything, but if it's not executed right, then you've essentially done worse than not only released a bad product, because you represented a whole thing as being shit, you know? And that's what happens to EDM.
Oh my God, you had to go there.
Only did you write a bad track, is you got a million people
you represented all of EDM
dancing to it.
God. All right, so all right. On that note, we're gonna wrap. So for those of you that somehow are just tuning in, I'll encompass this all in one or two sentences. This is Joel Zimmerman, aka deadmau5. You probably know who he is already. He and Absolut teamed up to make this VR cardboard headset and an app. It's called the Absolut deadmau5 VR experience app thing. It'll be available in the App Store on, is it July 27th? This is available for pre-order right now. It's a standard Google Cardboard headset, but obviously not so standard because it's got deadmau5 stuff all over it. This is $18. You buy this.
That's like $4 extra right there.
Right, yeah, exactly. The premium that deadmau5 holds. So that's available online, absolutdeadmau5.com to pre-order, and then the app will be available to download on July 27th. And I think I want to play the song Saved. There's a exclusive song inside the VR experience. Joel, I'm going to play this song to play us out. Thank you for being here.
What does that mean, to play us out?
We're gonna play the song and then
play us out. I don't know what that means.
Have you played a show before? You know, you play a song and then everything fades to black and then that's it.
This joke clearly over your head.
It went over both of our heads. But Joel, for real, thank you for taking the time to chat with us. It's been great. It's been real. And again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Saved by deadmau5.
Thanks.